Welcome to episode 260 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench podcast network presented by Playback. He's Tom Albano. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. As we get closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers, please help by liking and subscribing. Hitting that ovalish button below our videos on the video side would really be helpful to us to help the algorithm. If you can't watch on the video side, listen wherever you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, YouTube Premium, wherever you get your podcasts. Take us on the go wherever you may be going. Also, Empty the Bench and the Empty the Bench podcast are presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience, from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. We are officially back on the board with the Playback streams. We did one on Monday. A lot of fun.
We have one tonight.
We have one tonight, correct? So you will be seeing a lot more of us, hopefully, throughout the Christmas break, as long as everything cooperates scheduling-wise. You say that right after. Well, you know what I mean, because like it's not just you, but
I know. No, I'm just finding it funny. You mentioned that right after I just got the rug pulled out.
Yes,
it's gonna be in 6 ways to Sunday, basically.
Yes. So we have a plan. We're gonna have to change it a little bit, but we'll find a way. But a lot to get to. Not as many topics. This episode's going to be more the body of the topics.
Yeah. Good news for football fans. Plenty of football to talk about this
First
week.
time in a while, we've done a lot of football.
Of course, the big news coming out of the Thanksgiving weekend, which hopefully everybody had their happy Thanksgiving out there. I can tell you who didn't have a good Thanksgiving, and that was Matt Eberflus, who got fired.
I guess you could say he's the giant turkey of Thanksgiving.
After one of the most embarrassing and frustrating things that I have ever seen as a football fan, that he was done. Like, nothing the Giants could have done, even though nothing the Giants could have done could top what Matt Eberflus did.
Or the Jets.
Or not even anything that the Dolphins, Packers was. It wasn't a blowout game, but when you look at the 3 Thanksgiving games and the Black Friday game, that game was the biggest blowout or one-sidedness. Nothing could compare to what Matt Eberflus did. So we'll talk about that and what that means for the Bears. We'll talk about, obviously, the big topic right now is Trevor Lawrence and the hit that he suffered, left concussed on Sunday.
Talking about brain trauma, too.
And the Texans defender who hit him has now been suspended for 3 games. And you've got the Texans general manager, Nick Caserio, just basically going off. Aziz Al-Shaair, by the way.
Yeah, you'll hear from Nick Caserio, the Texans GM, a little bit later on in the show.
Some college football. We never really talk about college football on the show, but some significant stuff happened during rivalry weekend this past weekend.
Usually we leave Forever Power 5, our college football show, which I expect a really good show this week. There's a lot of news going on in that world.
Yeah, but this topic is now going to be covered by us, Forever Power 5, Bando's breakdowns, and moving the goalposts.
Well, it's a big topic, especially because it has to do with something that we don't talk about a lot in professional sports, and that's character.
Yes. Andrew Luck in the news, joining Stanford as its GM. So it's not only Woj who is getting a special role at an alma mater.
It's a title.
Some baseball news. Yeah, so it's 4 football stories, 2 baseball stories. You got the Dodgers making the first signings of free agency, signing Blake Snell, Tommy Edman. And then what is this golden at bat that is being discussed for MLB?
Actually, what's ironic, and I don't know if you remember this from way back when this rumor started, but there's a show you and I like a lot that we steal bits from, like just in our own way. Levitard show.
Yeah.
Stu Gatz was really the one who brought the idea up on the show of a golden at bat, he called it a magic at bat. And
well, they're gonna have to work some magic to figure out how this is gonna work, and we'll talk about that.
It's like National League style baseball, if you think about it.
All right, but let's get into the football stuff. Let's start with the Bears. Matt Eberflus, as he said, the Bears were playing the Lions, and the Bears were actually making a little bit of a noise, making a little bit of a comeback. Bears had the ball. You didn't think that they were going to get one more possession, but they did. The Bears had the ball, making their way down the field. They had to get a touchdown, I believe. Caleb Williams was sacked with about 30 seconds left to play, and the Bears had one timeout remaining. And they did not use the timeout.
And
instead,
his explanation after the game was hilarious, too.
Defending it, saying that he thought he made the right call when they didn't even rush. They got to the line and didn't snap the ball until there were 6 seconds left on the clock.
Oh, they took their sweet time getting up to the ball.
Now, originally, maybe you could attribute that. Yeah, if you knew nothing about what was going on behind the scenes, maybe you attribute that to Caleb Williams being a rookie and still learning the game. But that doesn't make sense to me when he's been playing college football for a while and was one of the best quarterbacks. So then it comes out, and everyone is questioning, what is Eberflus doing? Because as the head coach, if none of your players are going to call the timeout, then you as a coach need to call the timeout. And he's like, no, I think we made the right call in not calling the timeout. And the media questions, even after you lost the game. Yeah, I understood the risk, but I thought it was the right call.
Oh, people are going to say, when he could, I think he lost the job as soon as he said that, even though stupidly the Bears let him speak at the 10 a.m. Eastern time press conference.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Although everyone called he was getting fired the next day because I think it was one of the Bears executives. I think it was the president.
Kevin Warren.
Yeah, was spending a lot of time. And reports were that at one point he pulled Caleb Williams aside to have a little bit of a conversation.
So the reason, at least from what I understand, that he was even at his press conference, Eberflus, was because Warren and Ryan Poles were meeting at the same time. You couldn't make that timing any better, to be honest.
You couldn't meet, earlier. You couldn't meet earlier in the day, so that way you could lay out the plan.
I mean, that's so the Chicago Bears, of the last decade.
But I would actually say it's the Chicago Bears of this season because the reason Eberflus is fired, I mean, Nick, it is amazing. Every time you think they've reached the bottom of a way to lose, they manage to find another new way to lose a game.
I mean, I thought the Jets were masterful at losing games differently, but now the Bears are proving it themselves, too.
The Bears this season are just, I don't know what to describe them.
Actually,
you know what? The word in the, sorry for the people who are listening on audio, but the word in the banner for those on the video side sums up disaster.
Yeah, I mean, the Fail Mary obviously being one of the creative ways of them losing a game.
Nothing has been the same for them since that game. They were actually winning games up until that point.
Right. And, I mean, not that I really want to do this because we usually save this sound for one team, but this is what I think of the Bears right now.
Bears, country, Bears, country, Bears, country. Nah, it doesn't flow. It doesn't flow.
That's the Chicago Bears. And, as much as I don't want to, make fun, because we have two Bears fans, obviously Zan and Grant, part of this network, but I think they realize how bad, this team is in turmoil. And
the two of them were crying out that Eberflus needed to go.
Well, I think I said it very early on that I'm surprised Eberflus still has a job. I'm surprised he was the head coach this year. They had a chance and an opportunity to grow, and they keep a guy who can't do the fundamentals of coaching properly, and then just come like we said, coming out afterwards and say, "Oh, I'm going to defend it. I'm going to double down on the choice I made not taking the time out. Now, the question is, and people on the video side will say the names. So Kliff Kingsbury, Ben Johnson, Joe Brady, all reported names for the head coaching search. I would cross Joe Brady off. I don't think that's going to happen. I agree with you that I think Kingsbury is probably the top choice.
Well, the reports are that he is the top choice now.
Well, he coached Caleb Williams
in college, yeah. And the thing is, look, I know Kliff's last run with I think it was Arizona, didn't exactly end in the greatest of manners.
He was supposed to go to Oakland, if you remember the drama of that too, and then ended up going to Arizona instead.
Yes, but at the same time, sorry, just doing a little check. Yeah, he last time he was a head coach was with Arizona. Then he spent 2023 with USC before joining the Commanders as their current OC. But like you mentioned, Caleb Williams, and actually this goes to something we were talking about and why Eberflus needed to go for weeks now. And Zan always talked about it on his show, and that is the development of Caleb Williams. Now, on one hand, and I've said it before in regards to my team and our quarterback, when you are changing head coaches every couple of years, you're not going to have great development of your players because, 2 years, lack of success, and then you change the schemes. 2 years, and then you change the scheme, and then you change the. You're not doing anything for your players by doing that. But here, I think it is necessary because it's pretty clear that Caleb Williams has a lot of potential, and I feel like the Chicago Bears have been absolutely wasting it. So if you bring in somebody who knows Caleb Williams, knows his strengths, knows his weaknesses like Kingsbury, then you have an opportunity to really put together a strong offense that can compete with all the other offense. Because here's the thing. The Bears were playing great up until the point of the Hail Mary. And the problem with them right now is they're also competing in the NFL's best division, where you've got the Vikings, Packers, and Lions all at 10 wins.
They had no shot to begin with to win this division.
No, but I didn't think so. But I thought, okay, maybe they can perform well there. They can get to 7, 8, maybe 9 wins. And, it feels like they could with the roster that they have.
I think that was a lot of expectations, though, for a number 1 overall rookie quarterback coming out.
Well, when you've got a team around you like with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, Herbert, and the running backs there, like I feel like there was a chance. And the Chicago Bears defense, mind you, was highly touted, but they just have not played up to the level. But that's, I think, a different issue. Well, actually, no. The defense played well at the start of the year.
The defense was never really the issue. It was the offense really getting on tap. But the one thing I was going to say is, and this goes for the Giants situation, the Jet situation, and the Bears situation as a whole. I would say that the amount of coaching changes we have seen with the team, because you were bringing up, you can't keep changing the scheme. You can't keep changing the scheme, which I agree. But I think you have to blame an upper situation in all the organizations if you have to keep changing the coach. Well, so I think you have to blame Ryan Poles.
I was going to ask, are you shocked that Poles is, because now the reports are Poles is keeping his job? Are you shocked?
I was shocked, really shocked. I thought that once Kevin Moran came in and was starting to make all the statements and said, I'm taking this over. Ryan Poles will do the work, but I'm the one who's going to make all the sign-offs on everything. I thought that was the beginning of the end. But then he comes out and says, he's keeping his job. And I'm like, wait, what? And
here's going to be the ultimate question. If Kingsbury comes in, now the team is going to need development, but if the team does not see improvements in Kingsbury after one season, then his Poles pretty much done.
Yeah. I mean, but here's the one rarity of a situation when you walk in with a new head coach. You have a quarterback, number 1 overall quarterback. You're not coming in and changing the perspective of the scheme. You have a guy who you're hoping to keep for the next 10 to 12 years, and you have to make it work with him. You have no choice. This is not go in and pick your guy.
But that's where I think the advantage is with Kingsbury, is that he already knows Caleb. So the two of them already have a rapport.
Right. But I mean, to be honest, but I would cross Ben Johnson off this list too, because
Well, what did you call them? Boy who cried wolf?
I said Ben Johnson is the boy who cried wolf because he's like we discussed this the other night. Eric Bieniemy, who used to be on every coaching hire list. Oh, he's the best coaching candidate. He's the best offensive coordinator in the league. Then he ended up with Washington, and now he's nowhere. He's out of the league because of all the issues he had off the field.
And then you've got Joe Brady, but you don't think he's going to leave his current?
No, I just don't. That's Buffalo, right? I think Joe Brady's Buffalo. But my point is that
yes, offensive coordinator for Buffalo.
Yeah, Joe Brady's been really good. I wouldn't leave Buffalo. I wouldn't leave Buffalo at all. That situation is going to be good for many years to come. So I would rather stay in a good situation rather than go out on my own and fend as a head coach. People forget that sometimes, that you're better off staying in a situation, unless you're Andy Reid and you end up going from the Eagles to the Chiefs and you win 2 Super Bowls. But my point is, Ben Johnson is never going to take a head coaching job. I'm willing to put that on the record right now. Why would you want to leave Detroit right now? Why?
Actually, yeah. So basically, you're arguing the same point then for Ben Johnson and Joe Brady because they're in such good positions. Now somebody could obviously throw a bag, but again, if you hire Ben Johnson or Joe Brady, then you've got to hope that Caleb Williams and them work together on an offensive plan, again, which is different from a guy who's already got established rapport like Kingsbury, who's already got NFL head coaching experience like Kingsbury.
Also, in the Ben Johnson scenario, it's not like he can pick up the Detroit offensive playbook and drop it in the Bears.
That may not work with the Bears.
That's the point I'm making. Like, it's not the same scenario.
Especially when you've got, I like Keenan Allen, but somebody who's injury prone, very injury prone, like Keenan Allen.
I mean, the Lions playbook is very open. I don't see that with a number 1 overall rookie quarterback with the playbook being wide open because they're trying to establish who he is as a player.
I'm sorry for saying this, but it's also very open because of Jahmyr Gibbs.
Well, yes. Oh, God. Yes. You're right. But my point is, like, they take more risks as an offense. The Bears can't do that yet. They're just not established. You don't see them going for it on 4th and 10 like Campbell does. You just don't see that same offensive smarts. So, to be honest, I think Kliff out of these 3 guys, Kingsbury is the only option.
I wouldn't say the only option, but I think he is the best option.
According to this report, I would say he's the only option, viable one, at least with head coaching experience.
Mm-hmm. So I think you and I are in agreement on that one. All right, let's talk about the other big NFL story. Trevor Lawrence, who unfortunately suffered a concussion during the Jaguars game against the Texans this past Sunday. Trevor Lawrence was giving himself up on a slide when defenseman Aziz Al-Shaair came into the fold and basically clobbered him. To quote Chris Nowinski, basically you saw Trevor Lawrence in the fenced up position, which when a body is fenced up and is stiff like that, that's a sign that they are unconscious.
That signals brain trauma. That's what they were saying. And
Lawrence ended up getting carted off.
I mean, somehow they managed to get him up, which I was surprised. But he got hit so hard and so fast. Like, you saw how fast the Jaguars' offensive line got up and started going after Shaair and the rest of the Texans, that it caused a huge brawl on the field. I was like, okay, that was a bad hit. I saw that live on Red Zone when it happened. I was like, oh, shit. Like, but there's a whole debate going on of, can you stop your body fast enough if you're in the action of making a move? I'm not saying he didn't do anything wrong. I'm just pointing out that it's kind of like when they had to change the rules for roughing the passer. And remember all those years you were allowed to just sit the quarterback down.
Yeah.
Now you have to tuck them in with a bedtime story every time you want to tackle them. So, and to be honest, I would call it the Tom Brady rule. to be quite honest, because he used to, if you remember, every single time he got hit, he would be bitching at the referees to throw a flag. So we see this hit. It's bad. Live in 100% motion, it's bad. And then Al-Shaair starts going after people on the Jaguars. He ripped his helmet off. That's a no-no in the NFL. I don't know. What was your reaction when you first saw the hit? Because mine was like, oh, like
I felt terrible. I'm like, oh God. Because, and now at this point, you got to have all the questions. Obviously, two was a whole other situation that we talked about earlier this season because of the number of concussions that he's had. But still, the fact that Lawrence got his bell rung as bad as it did when we've got a few weeks left within the season. I think we got 5 weeks left. Is Lawrence going to be able to come back in time? Is it worth having Lawrence considering the state that the Jaguars are in right now? I would probably say no. You just have Mac Jones carry you the rest of the way through the season. But that's on the football end. That's on the team end. As far as the hit itself, the play itself goes, I mean, look, it was a bad hit. And, maybe we could talk about momentum all we want, but still, when a quarterback is giving himself up, you got to be able to try and do something. And when the hit happens, regardless of what happens, Nick, the consequences are going to come, and the consequences came now. Al-Shaair was officially suspended by 3 games. For 3 games by the NFL. The NFL, he has made an appeal with the NFLPA, and the suspension is being appealed. I know you said the reports are maybe it doesn't look good for him, but considering this is a players association, Nick, I would not be shocked if this got knocked down to maybe a game or 2.
So I'm just reading quickly through some of the statements that NFL VP of Football Operations, John Rion, I'm sure I butchered that name, issued the suspension. They say they wrote a letter. I'm sure they did not write an actual letter. Runyan, who noted that Al-Shaair has had multiple offenses for personal fouls and sportsmanship-related rules violations in recent seasons, wrote, and this is a direct quote from it, during your game against the Jacksonville Jaguars on December 1st, with 4:20 remaining in the second quarter, you were involved in a play that the league considers unacceptable and a serious violation of the playing rules. Video shows you striking the head/neck area of Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence after he clearly goes down in a feet-first slide, which a lot of people are debating, by the way, if it was actually a feet-first slide.
No, but actually, I'm trying to look at a USA Today article. Okay, so actually, multiple players took hit with Al-Shaair's action. Evan Engram said after the game it was dirty. Defensive end Josh Hines Allen labeled it stupid. So, but when it's talking about the multiple offenses, so actually this is from USA Today. Al-Shaair was actually at the center of another controversy this season in week 2 when he hit Caleb Williams on the sideline as the rookie was running out of bounds. Al-Shaair punched running back Rashawn Johnson. That was the name of the running back I was trying to think before, in the face mask. He was not suspended, but was issued an $11,817 fine.
I laugh at that fine, by the way. But it says here that he also said you led with the forearm and helmet and delivered a forceful blow to the head/neck area of your opponent when you had time and space to avoid such contact. Now, a lot of people are saying that the sentence of you had time and space to avoid contact, I think that's tough without you being down there on the field level to see and actually being in the play. But he goes on to say, after the illegal hit, you proceeded to, and this is the part that he goes on to talk about. After the illegal hit, you proceed to engage in a brawl, which you escalated when you pulled an opponent down to the ground by his face mask. After the referee announced that you were disqualified for the hit and your unsportsmanlike acts, you removed your helmet and re-engaged with your opponent while walking down and across the field.
Yeah, well, I did witness that. I did see that in videos revolving around the ejection. That's a big no-no. You can't do that.
I mean, you kind of have to know, like, when it's over.
To pick your battles, yeah, and he didn't. So unfortunately, regardless of what happened, the fact that unfortunately, Nick, he is causing his own problems because he escalated everything to another level that it did not have to escalate to.
Would you say this kind of reminds you of the Myles Garrett scenario that happened a little while back?
Ooh, I forgot about that.
Because remember, he got suspended and he got in trouble for multiple hits, but I think he was just trying to give a good hard hit. He wasn't trying to hurt somebody.
I was going to say we didn't see Myles Garrett after getting ejected taking off his helmet, trying to re-engage with an argument with a referee or with another a player on the opposition. Like that's completely different.
So they go on to say your lack of sportsmanship and respect to the game of football and all those who play, coach, and enjoy watching it is troubling and does not reflect the core values of the NFL.
So I think you know what I'm going to say next. A violation of the shield.
See, I hate when the NFL uses that statement because we could go on the NFL side and say how many times they violated the core of the NFL.
But I will give credit to this. Yeah, the way that he acted was an embarrassment.
Agreed.
So, he's got to get some sort of suspension, especially because, as USA Today noted, this is not the first. It is actually true when the letter says this is not the first time they've had to talk to him about dirty hits in this season.
Well, I brought up to you the hit against Tom Brady when he put his hand on the neck of Tom Brady.
Right. But I'm talking about when Al-Shaair hit Caleb Williams early this season.
Well, yeah, trust me. They ran that highlight for days after it happened. So what ends up happening is he gets a 3-game suspension. He'll be eligible to return as of now, week 17 against the Ravens. But under the CBA agreement, Al-Shaair may appeal the suspension, which as of now he has. Any appeal will be heard and decided by now. Listen to this. The appeal will be heard by Derek Brooks, Raymond Foster, Kevin Maywee, and Jordy Nelson, all former players.
So now I see what you mean by it may not be good because the former players who have come out and spoken about nobody has taken his side. Now, like I said, I mean, Nick Caserio mentioned how these players with hits have been suspended for only a game or two. Well, let's get to that.
Well, so we have a choice. Do we want to go to the Shaair apology or do we want to hear from the Texans GM first?
Let's get Shaair's apology out of the way.
All right. So I'll read parts of it because it's long, but I'm going to read something afterwards because it was a little bit controversial what he wrote in the actual tweet, which I think people are going a little overboard over. But so he says, I've always played the game as hard as I could, never with the intent to harm anyone, and anybody that knows me knows that. My goal is to hit you as hard as I can, then I pray you're still able to get up and play the next play. That's a bit of a weird sentence, just saying.
I mean, but it's not false.
I know what he means, but and when the game is over, go home to your family unharmed because it's not personal, it's just competition. We both are trying to do the same thing, which is provide for our families. I generally didn't see him sliding until it was too late. Now that I don't know if I believe.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe that part either.
And it all happens in the blink of an eye. That I might agree. Because sometimes it happens so fast that we don't know what's going on in the field. To Trevor, I generally apologize to you for what ended up happening. Before the game, we spoke, and I told you how it was great to see you back out on the field and wished you well. I would never want to see any player hurt because of a hit I put on them, especially one that's deemed late or unnecessary. To the rest of his teammates, I could definitely understand you having his back and defending him in a situation like that. And then they go on. To the rest of his teammates, I could definitely understand you having his back and defending him in a situation like that. To the rest of the people who I've been called every single name in the book. Now, I'll get to that in a second. From reporters with their hands ready for a story to find their villain, to racist and Islamophobic fans and people who don't know my heart nor my character, which I don't need to prove to any of you. God knows my intentions, and anyone who has ever been a teammate or friend of mine knows my heart. So there's a lot going on there.
I mean, and unfortunately, this isn't the first time that we have seen. I don't doubt that people have been in his DMs, and if that's the case, it's not the first time that we've seen an NFL player or any athlete for that matter attacked with racist or
Islamophobic.
In his case Islamophobic. But I was trying to think of a word of any religion, any anti whatever the religion is of the player. The athlete.
I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree with what he put in the actual tweet, because he wrote "all praise to Allah" in the tweet, so that probably rubbed some people the wrong way. I'm not saying I have an opinion on it,
but in our toxic social media culture, you basically, when everybody can be a tough guy behind a keyboard, the messages that are going to
that's my theory of the egg picture that I used to say all the time.
Yes.
Where basically, I'm an egg. You can't see what I look like, but I'm going to write mean and nasty things to a pro athlete. But in the long run, he probably was going to get suspended anyway.
Yeah. Well, look, he has to be. We'll talk about Casario's comments now, but whether it's 1 game, 2 game, 3 game, guess what? He has to be. The way that hit was, the fact that it wasn't the first time he's got a dirty hit this season, it has to be. He's got to sit out a game at least.
The problem is you know why it couldn't be a 1-game suspension?
Why?
Because of what you said earlier, which was
it wasn't the first time.
No, because the NFLPA will try to say, wait, 1-game suspension, we're going to knock it down to a fine. So they had to make it 3 games. It's the whole Major League Baseball suspension theory.
No, I agree. I'm saying, they're going to knock it down. With the appeal to the Players Association, it's going to get knocked down, but it's not going to get knocked down to a fine. He's going to be sitting a game or 2.
I mean, he's appealing, so obviously he feels strongly that the suspension is...
Casario feels strong about it too.
Well, okay, so let's get to... And I put a thing on the bottom when we play this. But, so, Nick Casario, the Texans GM... Now, this is long, so we're going to probably interrupt it in the middle just to kind of break it up a little. It's like 2 minutes long. And he goes, would you call it like a mini tirade? I wouldn't call it a massive tirade, because he didn't curse. He does go after the NFL. He might get fined, actually, because he goes after the NFL for calling them reckless.
This is from a press conference earlier on the day we're recording this.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. So it's the normal Texans or any team presser that they do during the day or during the week.
Yeah, but the general manager came out to talk in this case.
Which is rare. You don't see the GM come out and talk to the media in that way, shape, or form.
Let's go to it.
All right. So take a listen. We'll interrupt in the middle when we can.
Quite frankly, it's unfair. And I'd say one of the biggest issues that, and I probably speak for a lot of teams, not only the Houston Texans, but I think that's all teams ask for is consistency from the league. And I'd say in this situation, quite frankly, there's no consistency at all relative to the level of discipline that's been handed down. So when you go back, let's look at this season. Okay, we had multiple situations, multiple examples. All right, 2 really good players, I would say. Branch ejected against Green Bay, right? Plays the next week against us. Okay, Derwin ejected, all right, got suspended for 1 game. And Derwin's a great player, and Derwin's had some other situations that have come up. And I'd say even going back here, a player that we know well organizationally here, Kareem Jackson. Kareem's a good player. Was ejected, fined, ejected, fined, ejected, and then suspended after 3 games. So we're going to say Azeez Al-Shaair, who nobody embodies our program more than Azeez. What he's about, what he's been through. You all know his story. There's not a more selfless individual, more about the team, who's earned the respects, that represents everything that we want this program to be about. This morning he was at a United Way event. So we're talking about some of the commentary that has been made about his character, about the person that he is, about what his intentions are, from people that, quite frankly, don't know anything about Azeez Al-Shaair, okay? And for the league to make some of the commentary that they made about lack of sportsmanship, lack of coachability, lack of paying attention to the rules, quite frankly, it's embarrassing. So I think the big thing from and they're talking about a player who's never been suspended, never been ejected. So now we're saying that he's going to be suspended for 3 games. So, look, it is what it is. I think the big thing from our standpoint, and all teams want this, is just some level of consistency. And we've talked to the league, quite frankly, but we don't have a good explanation. D'Amico talked to them yesterday. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, so that's a long 2-minute statement.
Well, there are parts that I agree, and there are parts that I disagree. One part that I agree is, maybe some people who don't know Al-Shaair's character are talking about him in a way that they shouldn't. One part that I agree, the lack of consistency. Nick, this is not the first time that we're having a talk about the NFL and
the suspension policy?
Yeah, well, or as good old urinating tree likes to call it, the wheel of discipline. Just, hey, whatever the wheel lands on is your punishment.
I think the Ravens might actually agree with that part of the statement.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's any sort of surprise. I mean, Nick, just a couple of years ago, we were talking about Deshaun Watson, and that came back up.
Well, I think
I know apples and oranges, but I think the point is this is not the first time that we've had conversation about the NFL and the lack of consistency. Now, here's a part where I really disagree with Caserio, and that is when they read the letter and about lack of sportsmanship. Al-Shaair could be a sportsman 99% of the time. But when we're talking about the one play that happened, when we're talking about what happened on the field this past Sunday, December 1st, with the Jaguars-Texans game, the hit combined with everything that happened afterwards and the way he reacted after getting ejected, he could be a sportsman 99% of the rest of the time. That one time, he was not a sportsman.
I mean, that full day was egregious. Everything that he did, from the hit to ripping the helmet off, which that could be a separate penalty in itself, or a fine itself, ripping the helmet. Then, engaging in a fight with the whole Jaguars offensive line, and he was throwing punches and doing all this. I mean, it's not a good look. It's really not a good look. And something tells me that the NFL is going to fight this one big time. Usually they would come to an agreement and say, all right, we'll drop it to 1 game or 2 games. This hit was bad. And as the letter from the NFL VP said, like, he's a multiple offender. So that's also, the NFL plays hardball when you're a multiple offender. So I don't know. This is like a rock and a hard place situation for Shaair.
Yeah. Let's talk about something in the college front. Some brawls that happened during rivalry weekend, particularly with the Ohio State Michigan matchup. So there was Ohio State versus Michigan. I believe the other one was
Florida State,
all revolving around the planting of a flag
at the 50-yard line. It's the away team. Yeah,
the away team planting a flag at the 50-yard line of the home team.
This happened in like 4 or 5 games, by the way.
Correct. The biggest of which was Michigan versus Ohio State, because, of course, that's the game, one of the biggest rivalries with college football.
Over 100 years worth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we saw one of the biggest upsets of the season, where Michigan, who has had a rough season after Jim Harbaugh left for the NFL.
They had no business winning this game whatsoever.
Yeah, and they beat the number 2 team in the country in Ohio State. Now, if you're Michigan fans, you're absolutely ecstatic because you're going bowling. You've got to win over Ohio State for the what year in a row now? It's fantastic.
Last 4 games they've won.
Yeah. And if you're Ohio, somebody pointed, it's going to be the first time, at least in a while, that an Ohio State class is going to go through its 4 years of college without seeing a win over Michigan.
I mean, if you look at Ryan Day's splits, I don't have them exactly.
Now you're going to say, but for Ohio State, you were number 2. This is a disaster. I think they fell to 6 or 7. And if you're Ryan Day, now you have 2 losses on a year. You had a prominent position towards the top of the college football playoff rankings.
Right.
And people already were calling for your head after last season or the last 2 seasons. Now here, and especially my other problem with it, Nick, is because Forever Power 5 is going to have a debate about it. MTGP is going to have a debate about it tonight. Zan's kind of talked about it, about Ryan Day should be fired. Here's my thing of it. It's not even the matter of the loss. Are the losses killing him? Absolutely. But what killed me was watching when everything was going down and hearing that. I don't know if you saw the video on social media, but one of the Ohio State captains going, "We're not letting an effing put a flag in our field." And Ryan Day is just standing there. And the reason maybe it rubs off the wrong way, maybe it's because of my profession. Because as a teacher, if I am as inactive as Ryan Day is, I'm getting in trouble. And the fact that Ryan Day basically just let his players do whatever. That tells me he has no leadership. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's been apparent for a while because Ohio State has not won a national championship, since I think like 06 or 07. I mean,
I have to go back. I'm not the biggest college football person, so
it's been a long time, but and again, like I started to speak to you about this. I spoke to Nick about this on the Playback stream. I would never tell anybody to incite violence whatsoever.
24. They won in 2014.
Oh, was it? Oh, it was much sooner. Okay. But like I said, I would never tell a kid or an athlete to incite violence whatsoever because that's wrong. But if you're going to plant the flag on the 50-yard line of an opposing team's field, what are you expecting the home team to do back? You're almost asking for fire back in return.
I understand, but I'm also going to take something that Zan said earlier. And you know what that is?
What?
If you remember? Don't lose.
Well, yes, but if you're wondering, it's the classic theory of like, oh, well, I showboated hitting a home run, running around the bases, and what happens in the next at bat? You get hit in the head.
Right. No, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but if you're going to take such offense to it, well, don't lose. And I think that's the particular problem with that Michigan-Ohio State game, because that's one of the college football games I'm always going to watch.
Right.
As a little supporter of yellow and blue. The way Ohio State played was crap.
Yeah.
It was awful. So my problem with that, I understand what you're talking about with the frustration. We're not going to, but now you're going to act like the tough guys when the game's over?
I'm not disagreeing, but like Nick D was saying, like, why didn't you just win gracefully and not cause a stir up on the field after the game?
I understand that perspective of it as well. I'm just saying that to me, honestly, I think Ohio State looks worse than Michigan coming out of this.
And the worst part was Fox was doing a post-game interview with one of the players, and all of a sudden the fight breaks out right behind the camera shot. And the player has to turn around and get in the middle of the brawl. And I was like, what is going on? And of course, what gets me even more annoyed, and this has to do now more with the financial aspects of it, you fine each team $250,000. Are you kidding me?
Well, keep in mind something, and it's something I told you in a pre-show meeting. Because Ohio State lost this game, they're out of their conference championship, which means the next game they're going to play is the first round of the college football playoff. And when it's the first round of the first time of an expanded 12-team college football playoff, do you really think the NCAA is going to drop suspensions on Ohio State players?
I'm not disagreeing, but I'm just saying.
I'm not saying that they don't deserve. They absolutely do deserve it, but typical NCAA.
I'll give you a number from Zan also, because we were discussing the fines.
Mm-hmm.
And so they each get $250,000. It's $500,000 combined between the two biggest college athletic programs. And he told me that the NIL budget for Ohio State is $20 million. Yeah. So we're talking about what? Just over 10%?
Yeah.
That's nothing. And they'll make that money back.
And I guess actually you can apply the same kind of argument to Michigan as well. Because because what I was going to say, Michigan's not playing in the playoff. They're going to play in a lower bowl game. But also, again, it's Michigan. Like you said, one of the most historical and well-known college programs. They're not going to have Michigan players sit out a bowl game.
Okay, so I just looked up Michigan's NIL budget. I couldn't believe that the information was public, but theirs is $50 million. Like, it's less than 10%.
And I know your feeling about NIL, and I actually think somebody in the most recent edition of Forever Power 5, we had a commenter on YouTube saying that NIL has ruined college football.
But like, I don't disagree with the fact that players should be paid. It's the way that it's being done is not right. And
well, I think that's mixing apples and oranges a bit here, only because I think NIL is one issue that has nothing to do with this.
No, but I'm saying now that you have all this money coming in from rich
you're
donors,
talking about defining, but the disciplining is the problem, because again,
I mean, Michigan. I don't know if you saw this story, and I'll bring it up briefly since we're talking about Michigan. But they just got Bryce Underwood to decommit from LSU to go to Michigan for $13.2 million.
Yeah,
think about that.
I know, no, but my point is the discipline. You talk about these fines. These fines should be coming with suspensions, but because the next time these teams are going to be playing two of the biggest programs in college football is going to be, in the case of Michigan, a lower bowl game. And in the case of Ohio State, the first round of the first expanded college football playoff with 12 teams, the NCAA is not going to do anything. Now, again, and that's why you have to find they should come with suspensions. But of course, the NCAA is not going to do that.
Especially when they're expanding the playoffs for the first time. They're not going to mess with anything. Just one more note to talk about money not being an issue for Michigan either. So they have a donor whose name is Larry Ellison. He's the second richest guy in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's not hyperbole. He is literally the second richest man in the world. So they'll literally say, "Oh, can I have the $250,000?" That he could probably wipe his ass with that $250,000. Oh, we'll give you the money to pay the fine. So that doesn't stop it. That actually enforces the behavior.
I know. I agree. Quickly, we have a couple more headlines just to quickly get through. Andrew Luck has now joined Stanford as a general manager of their football program, just like how Woj joined St. Bonaventure as the men's basketball.
It's a title.
It is. But I actually feel happy for Andrew Luck. I still feel bad the way that his career ended, announcing retirement in the preseason and all the fans kind of crapping on him.
I mean, he just had really bad injury luck. No pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is, like, the circumstances were unlucky, and like he was a good quarterback. Just he couldn't stay upright, and the Colts got him injured. His offensive line got him injured because they couldn't protect him. But you know what? I don't know if this is a paid position or if it's because I think Woj said he's not getting paid to do the GM position. But
I just want him. I'm glad that he's back in football, even at a college level, and I want him to have success and have fun with what he's doing.
Yes, and actually, I'll throw one more at you. Make him the third voice on the Manning cast.
I wouldn't mind hearing from Andrew Luck more.
I think that would be fascinating. Considering what's funny is Andrew Luck was not a loud personality quarterback. And do you remember that weird Twitter account that used to come out all the time?
Oh, yes.
Captain Andrew Luck or whatever, which was one of my favorites.
I saw him tweet after the news came out.
Like, it's one of the funniest Twitter accounts. I don't know if it's dead because he's not in the league anymore.
I just said he tweeted after the news came out.
But is that the only time like that account tweets, like when Andrew Luck news comes out? But you know what? I'd love to see him like on TV, maybe college football, maybe doing a color analyst.
Well, what's funny is last year during a Thursday Night Football game, he made an appearance on the Thursday Night Football booth dressed as Captain Andrew Luck.
I remember that, actually. That was funny, actually. But you know what? I'm happy for him. He's doing something he wants. I'm sure he made enough money when he was in the league, so I'm sure he's not hurting by any means. But it's weird, this trend of former players or media people becoming what they call the GM of a college athletics program.
Well, when you've got all that NIL deal money thrown through, I guess we're going to need GMs now.
True.
Joy. Speaking of general managers, a couple of baseball stories. The Dodgers have made the first splashes of free agency, signing Blake Snell and Tommy Edman to 5-year deals, as Ryan Suey and Ben Cruz mentioned on their free agency special on yesterday's Hitting for the Cycle. The catch is there's more deferred money involved in this.
Yeah, I'm so lost for words right now because I'm so frustrated about this. But here's the number that everyone needs to pay attention to. Okay, they have $1 billion in deferred money. I'll say that again: $1 billion in deferred money.
All right, listen to this. Blake Snell's deal is 5 years, $182 million. $52 million
Signing bonus.
Is a signing bonus up front. $66 million has been deferred through 2046.
Oh, I didn't know. Wait, what? I didn't know it was that far.
2046.
Wait a minute. What year is this again? 2024?
No, 2024 is about to end.
Wait a minute. Are we talking about 21 years of deferred money?
Yes. And Blake Snell is how old again? Let me double check.
I think he's in his 30s
32.
for sure.
He turns 33 today. Today's his birthday. The day this is airing.
First of all, I would have never given him that contract because he can't stay on the field and stay healthy.
So that means then he is going to be in his mid-50s when his contract expires.
Well, it's not. Well, the contract will expire when the years
expires.
Yeah, but I'm so tired of this deferred money.
Now, hold on. No. Now we got to look at Tommy Edman.
I think there is deferred money in his deal, too, if I'm not mistaken.
5 years, $74 million. $17 million is a signing bonus. $25 million in deferred salary.
Now,
and hold on. And a 2030 club option that's worth $13 million with a $3 million buyout.
Well, that's typical at the end of a contract. They usually buy out the last year, but...
So it's more of the Snell contract, basically.
Well, no, I'm frustrated overall because the Dodgers are owned by Guggenheim partners. Like, it's not even like... Do you remember back in the day when we were younger? Yes, this is the get off my lawn argument I'm about to make. When you had like single owners, even though there were multiple investors, but you had an owner who was like dedicated to wanting to build the team. It wasn't just an investment.
Yeah.
Like now forget baseball, but every sport, like it's now an investment instead of wanting to build a team or just making it a cash cow so they can collect on it. Like you're no longer going to see a Mark Cuban who just sold most of his ownership in the Dallas Mavericks. You don't see the owner sitting behind the players in the second row getting fined for yelling at referees anymore. Actually, the last guy I would say is the Clippers owner.
Really?
No. Now.
Oh, the current Clippers owner.
The Microsoft guy. I can't remember.
Palmer.
Steve Ballmer, who I love, by the way. I think because he's a fan, like on top of being in big business. But I'm tired of the Guggenheim ownership is bad for baseball.
And again, I say two things that we've already talked about. One, this is definitely going to be a point of contention come the next baseball negotiations because there's 2 more seasons, I think, and then it runs out.
We're skirting the luxury tax is what we're doing right now.
And something you pointed out, something that you have repeated over and over again. You know, Dodgers, congratulations. You got 1 World Series this season. That's not you got to win multiple World Series within this span because by the time everything hits in 2030, whatever, all that money, you're going to be
2030s. Yeah.
You're going to be the worst team in baseball by that point.
Well, it's not necessarily that they'll be the worst team in baseball, but there's going to be a huge bill that comes up.
You're basically going to have to pull a Houston Astros to have a bunch of young players.
Yeah, but here's the difference. And I've been hearing this a lot across different media sources. And I even heard Michael Kay talk about it on his radio show. It's no longer, it used to be that the amount of money teams spent was based on functional revenue. That was the big thing. It's no longer about functional revenue. Look at Steve Cohen with the Mets, who is worth $20 billion.
You can just, here you go.
Like, you hear the numbers that are getting thrown around for Juan Soto that he's basically
Right. Well,
willing,
Nick,
but that's not functional revenue though.
Well, Nick, what doesn't help rumors is, what doesn't help that is some rumors that are now been going on that Jeff Bezos might be interested in purchasing an MLB team.
Well, I even heard he's interested in purchasing the Jets. That was another rumor I heard also.
That too, yeah.
I don't know if I believe that. Trust me, I'd be ecstatic if he bought the Jets. But just when you look at the ownership in baseball specifically, everything is either owned by a billionaire or who's willing to throw money away to build a team.
Or somebody who's putting all the cash in his pocket and is not willing to spend on the team.
Well, or I was going to say you have a conglomerate that owns a lot of these teams.
Well, but when we're talking about the billionaire, it goes one of two ways. Either they're willing to spend all the money, a la Cohen, or there's somebody like NAs, like the A's or the Pirates, where the money is just going to go into their pocket and they're not going to spend on the players.
But I think what I basically like Guggenheim Partners, which is an investment firm that basically is willing to just say...
I know what you're saying. I think we're arguing the same point.
Yeah. So now the argument comes to they're already talking about a salary cap. Are you willing to put in a floor?
Well, you and our former co-host used to have debate about it. One of you would say floor, one of you would say cap. And you know what my response was always?
What?
Porque no las dos. Put both in.
And you know what? I agree with you now because this is a problem because as the contracts grow, and we're not even talking about how this affects the fan that wants to go watch the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, the joke you and I make all the time is get those chicken buckets at Yankee Stadium. I mean, you can't afford half the food at.
And if Juan Soto gets signed back to the Yankees, these water bottles here, these Poland Spring water bottles, are going to cost $25.
I mean, I think they're what, like $8 or $9 now when you go to Yankee Stadium. It's absurd for water, which we all need to live, but they're willing to sell it for $8 or $9. But the reason they need the floor is because of idiots like Scott Boras who are willing to just say, I'm reaching for $1 billion contract.
Well, again, it also doesn't help when you have, say, Mr. Fisher down there in, Oakland now, Sacramento, soon to be.
Well, no, now they're just the A's. They're just the A's now. They're float. You know what? They could be from Mars for all we know.
They could be from Uranus.
I knew you were going to say that. But this whole situation, they need a floor because they can't just keep raising. Because what is every agent going to do every year when they have the top player? They want They want the next big contract.
You raise? Oh yeah, I raise you. It's like a big poker game.
Yes.
Oh yeah, here you go. Here you go.
I'll make another obscene reference just because of how funny I think this is. No, it's not bad. I was going to say the salary cap and the floor situation they're talking about, Major League Baseball, is like chutes and ladders. Basically, we're trying to go up the ladder and up the ladder and up the ladder, and then you roll the number that sends you down the large ladder all the way down to the bottom.
Or as SpongeBob fans like to say, escalators and eels.
Yes, exactly. Good. Yes, good comparison.
Okay, that's not obscene.
But I'm just saying.
It's
right.
dated.
But I'm just saying, like, it's you get lucky and you hit all the ladders on the way up, and then you hit the one ladder that takes you all the way back to the start. That's Major League Baseball right now. Oh, look at all this money we're making, but eventually it's all going to come back down and crash.
Yeah. All right. One last thing we got here. Rob Manfred is talking. The reports are starting to come out that it's a golden at-bat rule is being discussed. Now, Rob Manfred has made it clear this is a discussion stage. Do not expect a golden at-bat rule to magically appear within the 2020.
Just like the robotic umpires, right?
Well, I mean, the way they're going about it, Nick, they better, if they're going to do something like this, they better use the minor leagues to test it.
They already have. Like, they've already been in the process where they essentially have umpires standing behind a system, and then because we've seen egregious calls where the ball.
I know, but I mean this particular rule. Which the golden at bat, for those who don't understand, is that at one point in the game, just one, a team can call for any hitter to come up at any situation.
Now, my question is, and I totally forgot to bring this up when we were talking about the other night, would a pinch hitter classify as a golden at bat?
I don't think so. I think that's just a pinch hitter. But what I think they're referring to is, like you explained yesterday, if the bases are loaded and Aaron Judge is 5 hitters away, they can just bring Aaron Judge up to the plate.
That makes more sense to me, at least. Like, because you're like, oh, I want my big hitter.
Right, but then comes the question that you proposed last night. If Giancarlo Stanton is up at bat, let's say for whatever reason they decide to switch Stanton and Judge, and Stanton is up at the plate, and Judge is on deck, and Boone says, okay, you know what, Judge, we want you now, so we're going to use the golden at bat. So when Judge's actual at bat happens, what happens? Is that just a switch?
Exactly. That's a question I have.
And actually, Roger Clemens came up with a really interesting question about that. So let's say the Dodgers need some runs. It's the bottom of the 9th inning. It's bases loaded, and Shohei Ohtani is up at bat. And Shohei Ohtani goes down with a strikeout. And they still have their golden at bat. Can they say, no, Shohei, you get another chance. Here's a golden at bat.
Well, actually, I think that falls under my theory a little bit of, like, you bat and then you bring them back up. How would you even officially score that?
That's what the end of the Sports Illustrated article I read said. Scorekeepers, my heart goes out to you, because this is going to be a nightmare.
My question is, so you're pretty much changing history of the official scoring.
Well, imagine if the batting title race comes down to a golden at bat.
I mean, I would hope the voters are a little smarter than that.
No, not the vote. Like the batting championship, like whoever's the highest batting average, and one hitter gets just like 1 point above because of golden at bats.
I feel like this is too complicated right now, and
this needs to be fleshed out more.
You remember what we used to say? If it's too complicated, then it's probably not worth doing. Well, this is a little too complicated. The idea is, in theory, good, because you want the best hitters up. Now, I think they need to make a rule that you can only use it while you're trailing.
Okay, fair enough.
And
but they did also say, if this goes through, it's one chance. You use it in the 3rd, you're not getting it again in the 9th.
Well, I think that would be stupid to use it before halfway through the game, at least.
But what if it's a blowout, basically, already by the 3rd inning?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know. Are there different circumstances also, like in the playoffs? Remember, they weren't paying attention to the clock.
Yeah.
As much. Is that rule going to go away during the playoffs?
Well, traditionalists are going to have a what show.
They already are having a thing. Well, you're talking about all the 60, 70-year-old men out there who don't take my baseball away.
Again, I'm a traditionalist in some regards. I feel like this rule, it is interesting in theory, but it needs flesh. It needs bones. We need to work on it more. So don't expect this implemented for 2025, because
I think it's going to take a few years.
We look at the situations that the two of us just mentioned, Clemens just mentioned. We need answers to those questions.
I mean, the challenge system was basically reviewed over quite a few years before they put it. They implemented it in the minors.
And it's tested in the Atlantic League, and it's tested in the minor leagues. Like
that was an actual need, the challenge system, because there were calls clearly being missed. And I would love to call the challenge system the Angel Hernandez system, even though he's not in baseball anymore. But I think that got escalated because of all his missed calls. But the challenge system was a value and a need. I don't know necessarily if the golden at bat is a value or a need. It's more like, hey, we want to get our best hitter up against the closer in a 9th inning with a situation of, hey, we have a chance to make this game. But then I just thought of another issue you run into. The extra innings rule. So now
So in other words, should you get another golden at bat when extra innings comes in?
Oh no, I wasn't even talking about that.
Or you were talking about the Manfred man?
Yeah, because the whole idea was you want to get these games done as quick as possible. Now you're changing with a golden at bat. You can put your best hitter up there. You might have a pitching change in there because of your golden at bat. And then if say that comes through, then you have extra innings.
The Manfred man is where my traditionalist comes out. I hate the
I
Manfred
hate
man.
it. And also I
feel like and maybe this is why I'm questioning golden at bat too, because I feel like your runs need to be earned.
Yes. Now, the golden at bat is different because you're just placing another hitter.
That's why maybe I give a little more lenience to this one. I'm not the hugest fan of it, but I give a little more lenience. The Manfred man, you're actually putting a runner right in scoring position already to start.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, when you get to extra innings and that runner's on second, if you give up that run, I don't think it's a earned run. I think it goes down as unearned because how did the runner get to second base? You can't.
Correct. You're correct. But if you're the away team and you don't score anything in the top half of the inning, most likely you're kind of screwed when the bottom of the inning comes.
So my question is, with the golden at bat, if something happens during it, is that considered unearned if that happens? Because that batter was not supposed to be there.
I get what you're saying, but technically the pitcher does pitch to the batter.
I think you kind of have to treat it a little bit the same because it's an unnatural occurrence that's going on.
There needs to be discussions on this.
Now, the debate of unearned versus earned is not the biggest of deals, but actually that could be the difference between what contracts they get at the end of the year too.
And the Cy Young race.
And the Cy Young race and the batting average race. Like you're putting a lot of factors into play.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like the idea in theory because hopefully you get the best hitter gets the best closer and you get better matchups in the ninth inning, which everybody wants to see. Because there were times when the closer comes in, you're facing 7, 8, 9, and you're like, all right, I'm out of here. See ya. No pun intended.
Well, we're going to say see ya right now because that's it for us. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the ETB Network. Follow us across social media at ETB Sports, at ETB Network. Again, subscribe here on YouTube, youtube.com/ETB Network. Help us. We're so close to 900. Help us get there. Then help us get to our 1,000 goal. Of course, listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so much more. Shout out to our friends over at Playback. Plenty coming this week. NBA streams. We're going to have a fight study with myself and Zambando this week.
We're making it up.
Yeah. I was going to say, some news that came to me earlier today. So some adjustments may have to be made on fight study, but
after the 17th, we have some plans to do some games like right before Christmas.
Yeah.
Too. So there's plenty on the horizon.
Speaking of, there will be plenty of NBA Cup action starting next week. We'll try to cover.
Oh, goody. My favorite tournament.
Yeah.
But just quick reminder.
Next week's it.
Next week is the last show, right? So tune into that. That'll be 261. That's a weird number to end on, by the way.
December 11th. And then December 18th will be our first best of the year. And then
so no episode numbers for the best of. Those are just best ofs. The part 1, the part 2.
Part 2 airs Christmas. We're not going to do a show New Year's time. Everyone, including us, are going to go enjoy the new year. So next week's the last episode of the 2024 season. 2 weeks of best of, a week off, and then we will be back, I believe, January 8th.
Yeah. The only ones that are really going to be continuously going: Football Forecast, Forever Power 5, Outsiders, depending on the date.
Outsiders, we're just gonna. There's a couple things specials we're gonna do, but really that's it. There are some plans that we got to look with Outsiders as well. But the point is, for the purposes of this show, next week is it, and then basically it's see you till January 8th. See you in a month.
Holy cow. That's crazy that this year is over. By the way, part 1 is done. In case people are wondering, there are some interesting moments in part 1 already planned. So that one's in the book. We still have to do part 2. Unfortunately, we have to wait till the last episode because this happened to us one year. where we had
2 years ago, Aaron Judge signed for the last episode.
So we would love to do it before the last episode, but
well, I was gonna say, and the news right now is Juan Soto will probably sign at the winter meeting. So next week we might end up be talking about Soto one way or another.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. Him and his $600 or $700 million on the tap.
All right. On that note, I'll end with this. So for Nick, I'm Tom. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.